When just talking about, say, a brand collaboration, earlier on in the series of the podcast, I was speaking to Mel Kentish, who's the global head of influencer at Sky. And when I was asking her what her biggest red flags for agencies were, it was anyone that wants to own the IP. So there are influencer marketing agencies that are trying to own the IP of the creator and then sell it into the brand. Does that sound quite bad to you?
Yeah, so I would agree that any contract where you're being asked to give away your IP, when that isn't something that you'd intended to do, would be a red flag.
And that IP is, say, if it's a brand campaign, that's the image that you've created for the campaign, or is that something else? Or can be something else?
So in general, the IP will be set out in any contract, but for creatives and influencers, I think the main form of IP will be the content that they are creating for the brand. They will own copyrights in that content, and obviously they want to be able to retain rights in the ownership of that content, so that they can retain rights on how that content is used by the brand moving forward, and to ensure that it's used in the way that they would want it to be used.
And why an agency might be interested in trying to gain control of that IP is that the campaign could run, but then say it gets around to a launch the following year, it's Christmas season, they have a piece of Christmas content and they haven't commissioned lots of new stuff but would quite want to run something. When it's out of the contract, they can then relicense it, but they would get paid and the creator wouldn't. Is that a possible scenario?
Yes, and I think another possible issue there is reputational damage. So if an influencer has very strong leanings towards sustainable fashion businesses or ethical practices, and that's really part of the image that they want to project to consumers, and they carefully select brands that follow those types of initiatives and practices. They produce content, they sign a contract which effectively gives up control of that, of the IP in that content. The brand then uses that content in a way that they don't agree with or don't like, and which goes against their beliefs in terms of sustainability or ethics or whatever it might be. Then it makes it much, much harder for them to prevent that type of use going forward. So I think those kinds of reputational issues for influencers are also something to be aware of and consider.
Yeah.